Ladies and gentlemen, most people beg at empty doors while their true fortune waits untouched. There is a divine bank with your name upon it, holding 110 million of supply, ready to be drawn the moment you write the check with your word. Tonight, I will show you how to cash it. In this message, I will reveal how to withdraw from the divine bank, how to speak the decree that transfers millions from the unseen into the seen, and how to keep your channel clear so the flow never stops. You will learn why struggle shuts the door, why fear delays the blessing, and why gratitude multiplies the deposit. If you have been bound by debt, crushed by smallness, or fearful of tomorrow, tonight you will learn how to call your fortune in faith and watch as Spirit makes the transfer. You may have tried saving, straining, begging, and still your account looked empty. You may have said, "Why does my prayer go unanswered? Why does abundance delay?" But the truth is this: the supply was never absent. It was waiting on your word. The divine bank is always full, but the check must be written with faith. The universe is not withholding. It is waiting to be commanded. And the moment you do, the fortune that is already yours rushes to appear. Over the next 2 hours, I will show you how to align with the law of divine supply, so that wealth comes quickly, easily, and under grace. You will hear true stories of men and women who shifted from poverty to plenty with a single decree. You will learn the affirmations that open the vaults of heaven, the attitude that magnetizes millions, and the subtle traps that keep accounts empty. I will open the scriptures to show you how every promise of wealth is already signed in your name. And before we finish, you will not only know the law, you will practice it yourself, writing the spiritual check that summons supply. Stay with me, for this may be the very message that lifts you in minutes. From lack to overflow, from smallness to millions, from fear to faith. Here's something most people completely miss, and it is the reason why they remain in lack even while heaven itself is shouting abundance. You are living with 2 accounts. One is the account of appearances, and the other is the account of truth. The account of appearances is the one your eyes behold, the one your bank statement records, the one that seems to prove your fears correct. It shows smallness, emptiness, insufficiency. You open it and say, "This is all I have." But the account of truth is altogether different. It is held in the divine bank of spirit. It is limitless, inexhaustible, already credited to your name, and it never runs dry. In that account, you are already rich. In that account, millions are waiting, not as a promise for someday, but as a present fact, ready to transfer the instant you speak the word. Do you not see? This is why the scripture tells us again and again, lift up your eyes. For as long as you stare only at the account of appearances, you will bow to it as master. But when you lift your eyes to truth, you see the higher balance, the heavenly ledger already full. The supply is not being created. It is finished. The only question is, which account will you draw from? Most people beg at the account of appearances, hoping to squeeze a little more out of their visible means, when all the while the true fortune is untouched, waiting for the check of faith. I remember the story of the widow told in the Book of Kings. Her cupboards were bare, her debts pressed upon her, her children were about to be taken for bondmen. By appearances, her account was empty. But the prophet said to her, "Borrow vessels, not a few, and pour out the oil." She obeyed. She poured from a little pot into many vessels, and the oil did not cease until every vessel was full. Her fortune had not been absent. It was hidden in the higher account. The act of faith transferred it into her visible world. That is your picture. Appearances may show an empty jar, but the account of truth holds unending oil. When you act in faith, when you declare your supply, the transfer is made and the vessels of your life are filled. So I ask you now, which account are you living from? Are you bowing to the report of appearances, reciting your lack, rehearsing your debts, magnifying your insufficiency? Or are you daring to speak from the account of truth, declaring that your fortune is already credited, that your millions are already prepared, that your supply cannot run dry? Remember, the account of appearances is temporary, shifting, deceptive. The account of truth is eternal, abundant, unshakable. The angel of money does not answer to appearances. It answers to truth. Here is your affirmation: I do not live by appearances. I live by truth. My account in spirit is full, overflowing, limitless. I draw from it now. I give thanks that 110 million is already credited to my name, and I receive it under grace in perfect ways. Speak it aloud. Speak it until your eyes lift from the empty ledger to the overflowing vault. Speak it until you feel the truth blaze within you, until you know beyond appearances that the fortune is already yours. Transition. And yet, if the fortune is already credited, why do so few ever draw from it? Why do most continue to beg and scrape while their supply lies untouched? That is because they never learn how to withdraw. They beg, they fear, they doubt, and by so doing they cancel the transfer. That is the snare we must uncover next. Here is what most people never see, and it is why they remain poor while sitting on a fortune. Their account in spirit is full. Their balance in truth is overflowing, yet they never make the withdrawal. And why? Because they do not understand the law. They do not know how the divine bank operates. They think it can be moved by fear. They think it can be opened by begging. They think it can be persuaded by doubt. And in doing so, they bar the very door of their own supply. The angel of money stands ready with the transfer slip in hand. But man himself cancels the order. Fear is the first thief. Fear imagines delay. Fear rehearses disaster. Fear paints pictures of lack and calls them real. Fear says, what if I fail? What if I cannot pay? What if there is never enough? And because fear is faith inverted, the law takes it as command and produces the very evil it foresaw. The man who fears bills will always have more bills. The woman who fears poverty will always find herself in want. The account of truth has not changed. It is still full. But fear has blinded the eyes and closed the hand. Begging is the next thief. How many fall upon their knees and plead, "Oh God, please send me money, please help me. Please deliver me from this lack." They think they are praying, but they are only confessing poverty. Every plea of please declares, "I do not have." Every cry of despair is a stamp of insufficiency upon the soul. The divine bank does not open to begging, for begging is doubt. The bank of heaven opens only to faith, and then comes doubt, the great counselor of demonstrations. A soul may declare abundance once, may even believe it in the moment, but then they look at appearances, see no change and say, perhaps this does not work. Perhaps I was foolish to believe. Perhaps it is all imagination. And in that instant, they cancel their own check. The word of faith is like a seed planted in the soil. If you dig it up every hour to see if it has sprouted, you kill it. If you water it with fear, you drown it. But if you plant it, leave it and trust it, it grows in silence and in time the harvest appears. I recall a student who came to me saying, "Florence, I have prayed for money for years, yet nothing changes." I said to her, "You have not prayed. You have begged. You have confessed lack in every word. You have knocked at the door of appearances." When the door of truth stands wide open, I gave her this affirmation. I give thanks that the supply which is mine by divine right now pours in under grace in perfect ways. She spoke it at first timidly, then with growing faith she ceased her begging. She refused her fear. She dissolved her doubt, and soon the transfer came. Money arrived through channels she could not have outlined. The divine bank had never been empty. She had simply never learned how to withdraw. So I ask you now, have you been blocking your own account? Have you been letting fear write your checks? Have you been begging instead of declaring? Have you been doubting instead of trusting? The universe is not withholding from you. The bank of spirit is not delayed. The fortune is already credited in your name, but the withdrawal must be made with boldness, with thanksgiving, with certainty. Here is your affirmation. I do not beg, I do not fear, I do not doubt. I declare that my supply is mine now. I give thanks that 110 million moves from the unseen into the seen under grace and in perfect ways. The divine bank releases it and I receive it now. Speak it until you feel the truth rise like a flame within you. Speak it until fear falls silent. Speak it until doubt has no more voice. For once you stop blocking the transfer, the angel of money rushes to deliver what has always been yours. Transition. And now that you see why most never withdraw, you are ready for the next revelation. The spoken word itself is the check. Every decree you utter is a draft against the divine bank, and every check written in faith is honored without delay. Here is the great secret that overturns the whole illusion of lack. Every word you speak is a check written upon the divine bank of spirit. Your tongue is the pen. Your faith is the ink. Your subconscious is the clearing house. And the supply of God is the account against which it is drawn. The law is exact. The law is impartial. The law is unfailing. If you can write a check of fear, it will be cashed in lack. If you write a check of doubt, it will return stamped insufficient faith. If you write a check of complaint, it will purchase only more to complain of. But if you write a check of faith, a decree of thanksgiving, a word of power spoken as fact, then heaven itself rushes to honor it, and your fortune appears. For the divine bank cannot refuse a properly signed decree any more than an earthly bank can refuse a valid draft against a full account. The difference is only this: the account of spirit is limitless. Most people are writing bad checks all day long and do not know it. They say, "I am always broke. Money slips through my fingers. Nothing ever works out for me." These are checks written against the account of lack, and the subconscious, obedient servant rushes to cash them. It does not argue. It does not reason. It does not say, "This is only a joke. This is only a figure of speech." It accepts the word as law, presents it at the clearing house of life, and the angel of supply delivers more of the same. And then the speaker says, "See, I told you so." They do not realize they themselves wrote the check, but the wise soul writes only checks of truth. They say, "Large sums of money come to me quickly, easily, and under grace in perfect ways." They say, "God is my unfailing supply, and I am rich in every good thing." They say, "I walk in abundance. I draw upon my fortune freely. My purse is always full." These words are signed in faith, deposited in the subconscious, and honored by the law without delay. The angel of money hears the decree and rushes to fulfill it. The demonstration appears not because the supply was created, but because the check was written and cashed. I recall a woman who often said in justice, "I should like to live in a trunk." She spoke it so often that the subconscious recorded it as command. In time she lost her home and possessions, and indeed she lived out of a trunk. Her careless words had been checks written to lack, and they were cashed in her own life. But I have also known a student who learned to write checks of faith. She declared, "I give thanks for large sums of money that come to me quickly and easily under grace." At first, nothing seemed to change, but she persisted. Soon, unexpected checks began to arrive in the post. Gifts flowed from friends, opportunities opened, and her supply multiplied. The difference was not in her labor, not in her fortune, not in her circumstances. It was in her words, the checks she wrote with her tongue. So I ask you now, what checks are you writing today? Are you scribbling drafts of fear, sending out slips of complaint, signing decrees of doubt? Or are you issuing bold drafts of faith written in thanksgiving, signed with authority, and deposited with trust? Remember, the divine bank never refuses a decree written in truth. The account is limitless. The funds are available. The angel of supply is standing at the counter. All that is required is your word. Here is your affirmation. My word is my check. I write only checks of faith, abundance, and joy. I give thanks that each decree I speak is honored instantly by the divine bank. I draw upon my limitless account. I receive my millions now under grace and in perfect ways. Speak it until you feel the authority of heaven in your tongue. Speak it until your heart knows that every sentence is law. Speak it until your words carry weight, until your decrees resound through the unseen and the transfer is made in full transition. And once you see that every word is a check, you must also grasp this next truth. The bank of spirit does not deal in delay. It does not hold your request for months or years. It credits your account instantly outside of man's time the moment the decree is spoken. That is the law of immediate credit. Here is a truth that overturns the whole lie of delay. Spirit does not deal in time as man measures time. Spirit does not say wait 3 months, wait 3 years, struggle and sweat, and perhaps your fortune will appear. No, the divine bank credits your decree instantly. The very moment the word of faith is spoken, the transfer is made in the unseen. The account is credited in full. The angel of supply is dispatched at once, and the demonstration begins to move toward you without hesitation. If the manifestation seems slow, the delay is never in spirit. It is always in man's doubt, in man's fear, in man's restless interference with the process. The law itself moves outside of hours and minutes. The supply is present now, and it rushes into form the instant you declare it. Most people stagger because they measure by appearances. They say, "I affirmed yesterday, but today I see no change." They speak the word at night, but in the morning they stare at the same purse and declare, "It is still empty." They do not understand that the moment they spoke, the decree was honored. The account was credited, and the angels were already at work arranging the channels, preparing the way, opening the doors. Their impatience, their disbelief, their constant digging up of the seed is what keeps the harvest from appearing. Spirit is never late. The divine bank never delays a true decree. The law of immediate credit is sure, unfailing, unbreakable. I recall the story of a woman who came to me with only 8 left. By appearances, her account was nearly empty. Yet she had a strong hunch, an inner urging of spirit to take a train home, though she feared the cost. She obeyed the intuition, trusting the law. On that very journey, channels opened, doors swung wide, and her fortune began to flow in unexpected ways. That 8 was not her limit, it was only the appearance. The supply had already been credited to her name, and her obedience to the inner voice released it into view. That is the law of immediate credit. Another student once told me, "Florence, I affirmed my good, but it never came." I said, "Never came. It came the moment you spoke, but you count the transfer with doubt. You buried the harvest with your fear. You stamped stop payment upon your own decree. Spirit did not delay. You withdrew the order." When she at last learned to speak the word and then rest, refusing to interfere, her supply arrived with astonishing speed. She said to me, "I see now that heaven was never slow. I was the one in the way. So I ask you, are you delaying your own demonstration by expecting slowness? Do you say someday my good will come when the law declares it is already here? Do you declare wealth in one breath and deny it in the next by staring at appearances? Remember, the divine bank does not withhold. It does not process your request over weeks or months. It stamps it paid in full the moment the decree is uttered. The only question is, will you believe it? Will you act as though it is so? Will you stand still and see the salvation of the Lord? Here is your affirmation. I declare that the law of immediate credit is mine. My word is honored in full the instant I speak it. I give thanks that my 110 million is credited to my account now under grace and in perfect ways. There is no delay in spirit. There is no waiting in God. My supply is present, visible, and overflowing. Speak it not as a hope but as a fact. Speak it until your mind rests, until your heart rejoices, until you know beyond appearances that the fortune is already deposited in your life. For when you align with this truth, miracles arrive swiftly, easily, perfectly, and the law proves itself without fail. Transition. And now, having seen that the bank of spirit credits your decree instantly, you are ready for the crowning revelation of this first section, the mystery of the night hour. When your words sink deepest, when your declarations become seeds in the fertile soil of sleep, and when you may wake to the harvest by morning. Here is a mystery most people overlook, and yet it is one of the most powerful laws you will ever know. The subconscious is most impressionable in the hour before sleep. Whatever picture you carry into the night, the subconscious accepts without resistance and works upon it while you rest. And because the subconscious is the workshop of spirit, it labors faithfully all night to bring forth, in the outer, what you have planted within. That is why I call your evening word the night deposit. Just as a man may walk into a bank after hours, slip a deposit into the slot, and know it will be credited by morning, so you may speak your decree before you close your eyes. And by the dawn, unseen forces have already gone forth to fulfill it. Most people, however, deposit the wrong thing. They go to bed rehearsing their worries, counting their debts, trembling over tomorrow. They toss upon their pillows muttering, "How will I pay? What if I fail? What if disaster comes?" And the subconscious, obedient servant takes those fears as checks, stamps them valid, and sets to work producing more of the same. By morning, they rise heavy, their burdens multiplied, their way still shut. They do not see that they themselves made the night deposit of fear, and so they awoke to the harvest of fear. But the wise soul knows better. The wise soul lays down in peace, having first spoken the word of truth, depositing faith into the subconscious, and rising in the morning to a harvest of supply. I recall the story of a woman who had only two left. By appearances, her purse was nearly empty. I told her, bless it, call it the magic purse of spirit that can never be depleted. Speak over it before you sleep and watch what happens. She obeyed. Each night, she said, this purse is filled and refilled endlessly. It is the magic purse of spirit, and it brings to me supply from every direction. Within a short time, that little deposit multiplied into 6,000. The purse itself had no power, but her words spoken in faith planted in the soil of the subconscious became the seed of abundance. That is the law of the night deposit and the morning harvest. Another student burdened with debt would lie awake each night counting what she owed. I said to her, stop rehearsing debt and begin rehearsing supply. Before you sleep, say, I give thanks that every bill is paid, every need is met, every door is open. I rest in peace, knowing my supply rushes to me under grace and in perfect ways. She obeyed. Her nights grew peaceful, her fears dissolved, and soon money began to flow from unexpected sources until her debts were cleared. By changing her night deposit, she changed her morning harvest. So I ask you, what are you depositing tonight? Are you laying fear in the vault of your subconscious, or are you depositing faith? Are you filling the night with worry, or are you sowing the seed of abundance? Remember, the subconscious does not argue. It only obeys. If you give it fear, it brings you more fear. If you give it faith, it brings you miracles. If you deposit complaint, you will rise to more lack. If you deposit gratitude, you will rise to more blessings. The harvest is always determined by the seed, and the seed is always the word. Here is your affirmation. As I sleep, I deposit abundance in my subconscious. I give thanks that money rushes to me all night long. The angel of supply moves swiftly while I rest. I wake to the morning harvest. Doors open, needs met, abundance in hand, under grace and in perfect ways. Speak it tonight. Speak it every night. Let it be the last sound upon your lips before sleep. And watch as your mornings change. For the night deposit is sure, the morning harvest is certain, and the law never fails. Transition. And now we close the first great section. You have seen the bank of truth against the bank of appearances. Why most for never withdraw? How every word is a check, how spirit credits it instantly, and how the night deposit produces the morning harvest. But this is only the beginning. For how do you write checks that never bounce? How do you speak words that are always honored? That is the secret of the next section. Learning to write your spiritual checks with the right words, the right attitude, and the authority of faith. Here is a truth that should strike the heart like lightning. Your tongue is the pen, and every word you speak is writing upon the great ledger of life. The subconscious is that silent scribe, recording without question every syllable that falls from your lips. And the world you see is nothing more than the book, written by your own words. You cannot escape this law. If you speak lack, you will live lack. If you speak failure, you will taste failure. If you speak disease, your body will obey. But if you dare to speak abundance, abundance will come. If you declare health, health will blossom. If you decree success, success will follow. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, says the scripture. And by your words, you are justified, and by your words, you are condemned. Most people treat their words as though they were idle chatter, forgetting that each word is a seed sown in the soil of the subconscious. The subconscious does not laugh at your jokes. It does not dismiss your careless phrases. It does not say, oh, she did not mean it. It simply receives the word as law, plants it in the soil, and brings it forth in harvest. That is why so many live in misery. They have sown weeds with their own tongues. They have cursed their own money by saying, it never stays, it slips away. They have cursed their own health by saying, I am always tired. I catch every illness. They have cursed their own opportunities by saying, nothing ever works out for me. And then they sigh in defeat, not realizing they themselves were the author of their misfortune. I recall the story of a woman who said so often, half in est, that she would like to live in a trunk. She repeated it until her subconscious engraved it, and at last she lost her home, and indeed lived out of a trunk. Her tongue had written her destiny, and the law had obeyed. But I also recall another who learned the opposite, who learned to write her fortune with her words. She declared, "God is my supply. Large sums of money come to me quickly, easily, and under grace." At first, nothing seemed to change, but she persisted. She wrote the decree again and again with her tongue, and soon her outer world shifted to match it. Unexpected income opened doors, multiplied supply. Her tongue had become the pen of a ready writer, and her life became the book of abundance. So I ask you, what are you writing today? Do you scroll out lines of fear, sketch paragraphs of defeat, sign pages of complaint? Or are you composing a story of triumph, writing checks of faith, filling your book with words of health, wealth, and joy? For every sentence matters, every phrase is recorded, every declaration is honored. Here is your affirmation. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. I write only words of life, abundance, and joy. Every word I speak is a seed of good, and it bears fruit swiftly under grace and in perfect ways. My tongue writes my millions, my health, my victory. Now speak it until your very lips refuse to utter complaint. Speak it until your tongue becomes holy ground, carrying only decrees of good. Speak it until your words are so filled with faith that the universe itself rushes to fulfill them. Transition. And yet, if the tongue is the pen, then we must ask, what ink are you using to sign your checks? Faith or fear? For both write upon the subconscious, both are honored by the law, and whichever you choose will determine your harvest. That is the secret we must uncover next. Here is a truth most souls never grasp, and yet it governs. Every fortune and every failure, every word you speak is a check, but the signature upon it is either fear or faith. Fear and faith are both belief. Fear is belief in evil. Faith is belief in good. Fear is belief in loss. Faith is belief in supply. Fear is belief in sickness. Faith is belief in health. And because the law is impartial, because the subconscious is a perfect servant, it does not judge which you choose. It only cashes the check as signed. If you sign with fear, lack rushes in. If you sign with faith, abundance appears. The law itself is neutral. The power is one. The only difference is whether you turn it toward darkness or toward light. Most people live as scribes of fear. They sign every decree with dread. They say, I knew something would go wrong. They say, I can never get ahead. They say, I always fall ill at this time of year. These are not idle phrases. They are signed orders presented at the bank of life. The subconscious takes the check, sees the signature of fear, and pays it out in full. The man who fears bills will always have more bills, for he has signed them into his experience. The woman who fears poverty will always see lack, for she has endorsed it with her tongue. And then they cry, why has this happened to me? Not realizing they themselves signed the order. But the soul that lives in faith signs a very different decree. Faith says, God is my supply and I am rich. Faith says, large sums of money come to me quickly, easily, and under grace. Faith says, I walk in health, in strength, in joy, and nothing can oppose me. These checks signed with faith are presented at the same bank, and the bank of spirit pays them out with unfailing certainty. For the law does not delay, the law does not argue, the law does not play favorites, it simply honors the signature. I recall the story of a man who lived in continual dread of a rare disease. He studied it, thought of it, spoke of it constantly. He signed every check with fear, and though the disease was exceedingly rare, it came upon him. His signature had commanded it. But I also recall the woman who longed for supply. She ceased her begging and began to sign her decrees with faith. She said daily, I give thanks that God is my unfailing source. My millions are mine now under grace and in perfect ways. Soon unexpected money flowed in. Her debts cleared. Her life transformed. The only difference was the signature. So I ask you, what signature are you placing upon your checks? Do you sign with fear, endorsing lack, rehearsing disaster, preparing for loss? Or do you sign with faith, endorsing abundance, rehearsing victory, preparing for miracles? Remember, both fear and faith are honored. Both signatures are binding. The only choice is which you will place upon the word you speak. Here is your affirmation. I refuse the signature of fear. I sign every decree with faith. I declare that my 110 million is mine now under grace and in perfect ways. I sign every check with trust, and the bank of spirit honors them instantly. My fortune flows, my health abounds. My life is victorious. Speak it until fear loses its voice. Speak it until your tongue moves only in faith. Speak it until you know beyond doubt that every decree signed with faith is honored without fail. Transition. And yet even with faith, many cancel their demonstrations by carrying their burdens instead of casting them. They sign the check, but then they hold on to the debt in their minds, smothering the supply with worry. That is why we must learn the next secret: casting the burden, clearing the overdrafts, and letting spirit balance the account. Here is a law, so simple yet so neglected. And because it is neglected, many cancel their demonstrations even after they have spoken the right word. You must cast the burden. Just as a man may write a check against a full account, but if his ledger is clogged with overdrafts and debts, the bank will refuse to honor it. So too, your decrees may be delayed if you carry the weight of worry, resentment, or fear. Worry is the overdraft of the soul. Resentment is the red ink that clouds the page. Fear is the unpaid charge that blocks the account. And the only way to clear it is to cast it, lift it off yourself, and lay it upon the Christ within, the burden bearer who never grows weary, who never delays, who always balances that account in full. Most people clutch their burdens as though holding them tight could solve them. They drag them to bed. They rehearse them through the night. They wake with them still in hand, and then they wonder why their decrees bear no fruit. They do not see that their own worry is the block, their own anxiety the barrier, their own fear the overdraft that cancels the check. The Christ said, "Come unto me all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That is not sentiment, that is law. The moment you cast the burden, the account is cleared, the overdraft is erased, the check is honored. I recall a woman who came to me trembling over a lawsuit. She said, "Florence, I have declared my good, but the fear grips me. I cannot eat, I cannot sleep, I cannot breathe without dread." I said to her, "Then you are carrying the burden. No wonder your decree falters. Say now, I cast this burden of lawsuit upon the Christ within me. I go free. The Christ within is my defense, my shield, my deliverer. The outcome is perfect under grace in perfect ways." She spoke it at first with shaking lips, then with growing peace. That night she slept soundly for the first time in weeks. When the trial came, the case turned miraculously in her favor. The overdraft was cleared because the burden had been cast. Another student drowning in debt could not think of anything but bills. Every thought, every conversation, every prayer was colored with the shadow of debt. I told him, "You are holding the burden so tightly that no supply can enter. Say aloud, I cast this burden of debt upon the Christ within me. I go free. My supply is unlimited. My debts are dissolved. My fortune flows under grace in perfect ways." He obeyed. The anxiety lifted. He walked with a lighter step, and soon money came to him in unexpected channels until the entire debt was cleared. He said to me afterward, "The supply was always there. I was the one blocking it with worry." So I ask you, what overdrafts are you carrying? Is it fear of money, fear of sickness, fear of tomorrow? Why write checks of faith in one hand while clutching burdens in the other? Why pray for abundance while rehearsing debts? Why declare healing while feeding fear? Cast it, release it, lay it on the Christ within, and walk free. For the Christ within never slumbers, never weakens, never fails. Here is your affirmation. I cast every burden upon the Christ within me. I go free. Every overdraft is cleared, every debt dissolved, every fear erased. My checks of faith are honored instantly. My supply flows now under grace and in perfect ways. Speak it until the burden lifts. Speak it until your spirit feels light, until peace enters, until your whole being rests in the assurance that the account is balanced, the ledger is clear, and the divine bank honors your every decree. Transition. And once the overdrafts are cleared and the account stands open, you must learn the next step, the power of gratitude. For gratitude is the deposit slip that multiplies what you have and prepares the way for more. Here is a law that multiplies everything it touches. Gratitude is the deposit slip of the divine bank. Just as no check is honored without being deposited, so no decree is complete without thanksgiving. Gratitude is not a polite phrase, not a mumbled thank you after the fact, but a spiritual force, a creative power, the very breath of increase. When you give thanks, you are multiplying the seed. When you bless, you are enlarging the vessel. When you declare, I am grateful, you are stamping your decree with the seal of heaven, and the law rushes to honor it. Complaint shrinks. Gratitude expands. Complaint cancels. Gratitude multiplies. Complaint declares lack. Gratitude declares abundance. And because the subconscious always obeys the strongest vibration, the soul that lives in gratitude lives in unending increase. Most people cancel their demonstrations because they deposit complaint instead of thanksgiving. They look at their purse and sigh, this is not enough. They pay a bill and grumble, this drains me. They sit at their table and mutter, there is never plenty. And so the subconscious records complaint as a decree, and the outer world shrinks to match it. They do not see that every sigh was a withdrawal, every groan was a cancellation, every complaint a check written to lack. But the soul that blesses instead of curses, that thanks instead of grumbles, that praises instead of sighs, finds their account multiplying daily. For gratitude is the deposit slip that never fails. I recall a woman who came to me with only one in her hand. She said, Florence, this is all I have. What can I do? I said to her, bless it. Call it the magic purse of spirit that can never be depleted. Give thanks for it now as though it were a fortune. Declare that as it goes out, it returns multiplied. She obeyed. She stopped cursing her money and began blessing it. Within a short time, that 100 multiplied into hundreds, then thousands. She said to me, the moment I blessed my purse, it became a channel instead of a prison. Gratitude had turned her $1 into a deposit slip that called forth thousands. Another student once complained bitterly over bills. She dreaded the sight of envelopes. She cursed each payment. She said, this drains me. This enslaves me. I told her, every bill you pay is evidence that supply has already been given. Each bill is proof that money has already flowed through your hands. Bless it, thank it, rejoice over it, say, I give thanks that this bill is paid in full. I rejoice in the abundance that flows continually to me. She obeyed, and soon her finances shifted. Money flowed from unexpected channels. Debts were dissolved, and she lived in peace. The change was not in her income. It was in her gratitude. So I ask you, what are you depositing into your subconscious? Complaint or thanksgiving, curse or blessing, fear or gratitude? Remember, the divine bank cannot multiply what you curse. It cannot enlarge what you despise, but it rushes to multiply what you bless. Here is your affirmation. I give thanks for my abundance now. I bless every dollar and it multiplies. I bless every bill and it returns to me paid in full. I give thanks that 110 million is already mine, credited to my account, and I rejoice in its perfect manifestation under grace. Speak it until thanksgiving rises naturally to your lips. Speak it until your atmosphere hums with gratitude. Speak it until your whole life becomes a deposit slip, and you find increase in every direction. For gratitude is the atmosphere of miracles, and in its presence the divine bank never ceases to pay transition. And yet gratitude alone will not sustain the flow if you allow panic to seize you. For panic cancels, panic slams the door. Panic is the thief that snatches away the demonstration. That is why the next seal upon your word is poise, the calm that proves your faith and guards your fortune. Here is a law that anchors every decree and secures every fortune. Poise is the seal of supply. When a man writes a check, he does not rush to the bank in panic, trembling to see if it will be honored. He signs it calmly, confidently, knowing the account is full and the bank is faithful. So, it must be with every word you speak. Panic is the sign of unbelief. Panic is the confession that you do not trust the account. Panic is the tremor that cancels the decree, the shaking hand that tears the check before it clears. But poise, calm, steady, unshaken poise is the signature of faith. It is the proof that you believe your word is law, that you trust the bank of spirit, that you know beyond appearances your supply is already present. Most people destroy their own demonstrations because they lose poise at the first sign of resistance. They declare abundance one moment, but when a bill arrives, they collapse in fear and say, "What shall I do now?" They affirm health in the morning, but when a pain comes at noon, they groan and say, "Perhaps it is not working." They decree success, but when appearances mock them, they throw up their hands and cry, "I knew it was too good to be true." And so, their panic cancels their decree. They do not see that the demonstration was already on its way, already moving through unseen channels, already rushing to appear. But their panic slammed the door before it arrived. The scriptures give us clear pictures of poise as mastery. Daniel was cast into the lion's den. By appearances, death surrounded him. But he remained calm, poised, unmoved, confident in his God. And because he stood in poise, the mouths of the lions were shut. Christ lay sleeping in the boat while the storm raged. The disciples trembled, frantic, crying, "Master, we perish." But he rose in calm authority and said, "Peace, be still." And the storm obeyed. Do you see? Poise is not passivity, it is mastery. Poise is not weakness, it is strength. Poise is the stillness that commands storms, the calm that silences lions, the peace that proves dominion. I recall a man who trembled each time a bill arrived. He told me, "Florence, the very sight of an envelope fills me with dread." I said, "Then you are writing checks of fear with every tremor. You must reverse it. Each time a bill comes, hold it calmly and say, 'I give thanks that this bill is paid in full. God is my unfailing supply, and God is never late.'" He obeyed, though at first his hands still shook, but in time his poise grew. He opened bills with peace instead of panic, and soon his supply multiplied until bills no longer frightened him. His calm became his command, and the angel of money moved swiftly because he had sealed his decree with poise. So I ask you now, how do you react when appearances rise against you? Do you tremble, collapse, declare defeat before the battle is over? Or do you stand calm, poised, unshaken, declaring, "Though appearances roar, my word is law, my supply is sure, my God never fails"? Remember, panic shuts the open. Panic cancels the check. Poise secures it. Here is your affirmation. I am poised, calm, and unshaken. I do not fear appearances. I rest in the certainty that every decree is honored, every check is cleared, every fortune is secure. God is my source, and God never fails. My 110 million is mine now under grace and in perfect ways. Speak it until your spirit feels still. Speak it until appearances lose their sting. Speak it until you know that your calm is your command and your poise is your power. Transition. And once your decree is secured with poise, you are ready for the final signature upon your checks, the authority of faith. For angels do not answer whispers of doubt, but they obey the voice of command. Here is the crowning seal upon every decree. You must speak with authority. A check unsigned is worthless. No matter how large the balance in the account, a decree mumbled in fear, whispered in doubt, is just as worthless. The divine bank does not honor uncertainty. Angels do not move for requests or half-hearted pleas. They move for commands. They rush to obey the words spoken with conviction, the decree declared as fact, the affirmation released as law. Authority is not arrogance. Authority is simply alignment with truth. Authority is the voice of God speaking through you. The calm certainty that what you declare is already accomplished. Most people weaken their own words because they never sign them with authority. They repeat affirmations timidly, as though testing, as though hoping something might happen. They speak like scribes, not like kings. They beg like beggars instead of commanding like heirs. And so their decrees fall flat. They do not understand that the tongue is the scepter, the word is the command, the decree is the law, and it must be spoken as one who knows. Christ himself is the pattern. When he spoke, he did not beg the storm to cease. He did not plead with Lazarus to rise. He said, "Peace, be still." He said, "Lazarus, come forth." He spoke as one having authority, and the universe obeyed. That same authority is yours, for you are made in his image, and his spirit lives in you. I recall a student who longed for right work. She begged, she prayed, she worried, but nothing came. I gave her the affirmation, "I have a perfect work in a perfect way. I give perfect service for perfect pay." But I told her, do not whisper this as a wish. Speak it as fact. Speak it as though the position is already yours. Speak with thanksgiving, with authority, as one who knows. She obeyed. Her tone changed. She spoke no longer as a beggar, but as a claimant of divine inheritance, and soon the right work opened to her better than she had imagined, paid higher than she had expected. The change was not in the words, but in the authority with which they were spoken. Another woman confessed that she affirmed often, but her affirmations seemed empty. I asked her, "Do you speak them as though they are already done, or as though you wish they might be?" She admitted she hoped but did not believe. I said, "Then you are writing unsigned checks. Speak as though the money is already in your hand, the blessing already delivered, the demonstration already complete." She began to affirm with thanksgiving, saying, "I give thanks that my fortune is mine now." And the supply rushed in, for at last the signature of authority had been placed upon the decree. So I ask you, how are you speaking your words? Are you murmuring them with hesitation, casting them out as experiments, or are you signing them boldly with the authority of faith, knowing they cannot return void? Remember, the angel of money obeys the commanding word, not the wavering plea. Here is your affirmation. I speak with authority. I decree and it is established. I give thanks that my 110 million is mine now under grace and in perfect ways. I do not beg. I do not wish. I do not doubt. I command. I declare. I receive. My word is law. My decree is honored. My supply is manifest. Speak it until you feel the weight of authority in your own tongue. Speak it until your word carries the ring of command. Speak it until heaven and earth bow to the voice of faith within you. Transition. And now this great section closes. You have learned that the tongue is the pen, that fear and faith are the two signatures, that burdens must be cast to clear the ledger, that gratitude multiplies every deposit, that poise secures every decree, and that authority is the final signature which makes every check valid. But this is not the end. For once you know how to write your checks with authority, you must learn how to live daily in the flow of permanent supply, so that your 110 million never runs dry. That is the next revelation. Here is a law that governs the flow of every fortune. Life will always meet you at the level of your expectancy. What you continually look for, you will find. What you prepare for, you will receive. What you rehearse in the secret chambers of your heart becomes the stage upon which you walk. Expectancy is a magnet. Expectancy is a mold. Expectancy is the invisible vault into which supply is poured. If you expect poverty, poverty fills the vault. If you expect delay, delay rushes to meet you. If you expect disaster, disaster hurries down the road. But if you expect abundance, abundance must come. If you expect health, health will flourish. If you expect open doors, the hinges will turn. The divine bank is never empty. The question is only, what vault have you prepared to receive its riches? Most people do not understand this law. They wake each morning braced for trouble. They open the post dreading the bill. They step out expecting disappointment. And because the law is impartial, because the subconscious must honor the picture it is given, their day unfolds exactly as expected. They have prepared their vault with dread, and dread is delivered. They have rehearsed loss, and loss appears. They say, "I knew this would happen," not realizing their knowing was the very magnet that drew it. They have been prophets of their own misfortune, and the angel of money, hearing their constant expectancy of lack, has simply fulfilled their decree. But the wise soul prepares differently. The wise soul rises each morning declaring, "Something wonderful is on its way to me today." The wise soul opens the post expecting checks, expecting gifts, expecting good news. The wise soul goes to bed saying, "Tomorrow will be greater than today. My good is always increasing." And because expectancy is a magnet, the day unfolds in joy. The post carries supply. The morning brings increase. The vault of expectancy has been filled with good, and the law has honored it. I recall a woman who lived in dread of sickness. Each year, as winter approached, she declared, "This is the season when I always fall ill." And so, each year, without fail, sickness came. Her expectancy had written the decree, and the law had obeyed. But when she learned this truth, she reversed her expectancy. Each autumn she declared, "I live in radiant health. I expect vitality. I go from strength to strength." For the first time in many years, the winter passed and she remained well. She said to me, I see now that I myself had been summoning illness. The moment I expected health, health obeyed. Another student, wary of lack, had grown accustomed to expecting empty pockets. Every trip to the market, he said, I will never have enough. Every bill, he said, this will drain me, and the vault of his expectancy filled with lack. When I told him, stop expecting emptiness, begin expecting abundance, he resisted at first, saying, but the appearances prove otherwise. I said, appear shadows. Truth is substance. Expect truth and appearances will bow. He began each day declaring, I expect abundance. I prepare for supply. I open the vault of my life to receive millions under grace and imperfect ways. Soon unexpected channels opened and money began to flow. His expectancy had shifted and so had his fortune. So I ask you, what vault are you preparing? Are you lining it with dread, filling it with complaint, stocking it with doubt, or are you building it with faith, decorating it with joy, filling it with thanksgiving? The angel of money cannot fill an empty vault until you prepare it with expectancy. Here is your affirmation. I live in constant expectancy of the best. I prepare the vault of my life to receive abundance. I expect 110 million credited to my account today under grace and in perfect ways. I expect health. I expect joy. I expect victory. And I receive it now. Speak it until expectancy fills your heart like a song. Speak it until you wake each morning with joy, until you go to sleep with peace, until the vault of your subconscious is so filled with good that only good can pour out. Transition. And once you see that expectancy is the magnet of your fortune, you will also see the folly of preparing for failure. For whatever you prepare for, you invite. And many souls, thinking themselves wise, unknowingly prepare for the very disaster they dread. That is the snare we must uncover next. Here is one of the greatest traps of the human race. Preparing for failure. Men call it prudence. Women call it caution. The world calls it wisdom, but heaven calls it inverted faith. For whatever you prepare for, you invite. Whatever you make room for, you receive. If you set a place at the table for fear, fear will dine with you. If you build a room for lack, lack will inhabit it. If you put money aside for disaster, disaster will surely arrive. If you expect sickness and prepare for it with dread, sickness will knock at your door. The subconscious is exact. It reads every preparation as a command, and the angel of supply, obedient servant of the word, can do nothing but fulfill it. Most people do not see the connection between their anxious preparation and their repeated troubles. They buy insurance against calamity, and then wonder why calamity strikes. They store up money for rainy days, and the rainy days appear. They keep medicine ready for the usual illness, and the illness arrives right on time. They say, I must be realistic. But what they call realism is simply faith in failure. Dressed in respectable clothing. And because the law is impartial, it grants them exactly what they have rehearsed. They do not know they have been setting traps for themselves, rehearsing disaster in advance, and living out the very play they wrote. I recall a woman who once told me, Florence, I must save every cent for the day when I can no longer work, for surely old age will bring weakness. I said to her, then you have already decreed your decline. You have signed your own downfall in advance, for the law cannot give you strength while you prepare for weakness. Stop rehearsing frailty and begin preparing for vigor. Say aloud, I go from strength to strength. My youth is renewed like the eagle's. I am prepared only for health and vitality. She obeyed, and instead of weakening with age, she grew stronger, living in energy and joy long after others had declined. Her preparation had been shifted from failure to success, and the law obeyed. Another student dreaded each winter. She said, every year I fall ill, so I must stock my home with medicine, for sickness is inevitable. And sure enough, every year she became sick, for her preparations had commanded it. I told her, stop preparing for illness. Prepare for health. Clear away the medicine and declare, I expect radiant health. I prepare for vitality. I go through winter strong and untouched. She did so, though trembling, and for the first time in years, winter passed without sickness. She said to me afterward, it was as though my body had been obeying my storage closet. But when I prepared for health, health answered. So I ask you, what are you preparing for? Are you laying bricks for failure, or are you building mansions for success? Are you rehearsing disaster, or are you rehearsing victory? Are you hoarding for lack, or are you expanding for abundance? Remember, preparation is prophecy. To prepare for one thing is to call it. To make room for it is to guarantee its arrival. Here is your affirmation. I never prepare for failure. I prepare only for success. I never prepare for sickness. I prepare only for health. I never prepare for lack. I prepare only for abundance. My vault is filled with expectancy of good, and I receive it now under grace and in perfect ways. Speak it until the very thought of preparing for failure becomes impossible. Speak it until your heart sings with readiness only for blessings. Speak it until your whole being becomes a house prepared for joy, a vault prepared for millions, a temple prepared for victory. Transition. And once you stop preparing for failure, the river of supply flows without obstruction. But to keep that river clear, you must understand the law of circulation, that giving is the proof of faith and blessing others is the key that multiplies your own fortune. That is the secret we will unfold next. Here is a truth that few dare to practice, and yet it is the very law that determines whether your fortune flows like a river or dries up like a stagnant pool. Circulation keeps the channel open, and blessing others multiplies your own good. Money is like blood in the body. Its health is found in motion. If it flows freely, the body is strong. If it clots or stagnates, disease sets in. So it is with supply. When money flows through you in faith, when you give with joy, when you bless what leaves your hand, your channel remains clear, your vault remains open, and the divine bank continues to pour into your life. But when you clutch in fear, when you hoard in resentment, when you curse what you give, the flow is stopped, the river is dammed, and your account appears empty. Though heaven itself is still overflowing, most people destroy their own fortune with stinginess. They say, I cannot afford to give. I must hold tightly, for I may never see more. And in that very thought they shut the door against the next inflow. They mistake hoarding for safety, when in truth hoarding is the surest road to lack. For the law is circulation, and circulation is life. To withhold is to choke the river, but to release is to prove your faith that supply is endless. The divine bank does not pour its millions into clenched fists. It pours them into open hands. I recall a woman who came to me with her last few dollars. She said, Florence, I dare not give, for this is all I have. I said, that is why you must give. For if you hoard this, you are declaring that God is not your source. But if you release it in faith, you prove that supply is limitless, and the law will multiply it. Trembling, she gave a portion as a gift and blessed it as it went, and soon money returned to her multiplied far beyond what she had given. She said to me, it was as though the moment I opened my hand, heaven opened its vault. That is the law of circulation. What you release in blessing returns multiplied. Another student lived in constant lack. Though she earned enough, she complained each time she paid, cursed each time she gave, resented every gift required of her. I told her, you are poisoning your own supply. You must bless what leaves your hand, for it will return to you in kind. Each gift is a seed, and every seed returns a harvest. She obeyed. Each time she gave, she declared, I bless this gift, and it returns multiplied. I rejoice in the circulation of my abundance. Soon her finances shifted. Money began to flow in channels she had never expected. Debts cleared, opportunities multiplied. Her giving had unlocked her receiving. So I ask you, how do you treat what leaves your hand? Do you curse it, groan over it, resent it, or do you bless it, rejoice in it, declare it multiplied? Remember, every gift you give is a seed, and every seed brings forth after its kind. Sow with fear, and the harvest will be small. Sow with faith, and the harvest will overflow. The angel of money cannot multiply what you curse, but it rushes to increase what you bless. Here is your affirmation. I bless everything I give, and it returns to me multiplied. I am a clear channel for divine supply. Money flows freely through me and to me. I rejoice in circulation, for it proves my faith in God as my source. My 110 million flows in and out with joy under grace and in perfect ways. Speak it until every act of giving feels like planting seed in a field you know will flourish. Speak it until you bless every bill, every gift, every outflow. Speak it until you see that nothing leaves your life without returning multiplied. For blessing keeps the channel open, and in that circulation lies the secret of permanent wealth. Transition. And once you learn to bless and circulate, your life begins to take on a new atmosphere. Not of fear, not of waiting, not of hoping, but of triumph. You walk as though the millions are already yours, because in truth they are. That is the next great secret. Walking in victory consciousness. Here is the summit of supply. The crown of every demonstration. The secret that turns single deposits into an unbroken stream. You must walk in victory consciousness. Now victory is not future, it is present. Victory is not a far-off dream. It is a living reality. Victory is not something to strive toward. It is something to stand in. Most people live as slaves to appearances. They rejoice when things look good, but collapse when shadows fall. They declare abundance when money is in hand, but speak defeat when the purse is light. They affirm health when they feel strong, but confess weakness at the first ache. They walk in and out of faith, up and down with circumstance, tossed like a ship upon the waves. That is not victory consciousness. That is defeat dressed in religious phrases. Victory consciousness looks beyond appearances. It declares, though my eyes see emptiness, I know fullness is mine. Though my body trembles, I know health is mine. Though my purse appears small, I know millions are credited to my account. Victory consciousness does not wait for proof. It provides the proof by its own decree. It walks as though the demonstration is already complete. And by walking in it, it makes it so. I recall a man who had failed in business again and again. Each venture crumbled, each plan dissolved, and he said to me, "Florence, I am cursed. Nothing I touch succeeds." I told him, "You are not cursed. You are only walking in defeat. You rehearse failure. You expect collapse. You confess disaster. And so it follows you. Change your walk. Speak victory. Declare every plan prospers. Every door opens. Every step I take is guided and successful." At first, he could scarcely believe it, for appearances mocked his every word. But he persisted. He walked as though he were already a success. He carried himself as though triumph were inevitable, and soon his affairs shifted. A new venture opened, prospered, and multiplied. He said to me, "The change was not in the world. It was in me. When I walked in victory, victory walked with me." Another student, broken-hearted from disappointment in love, said, "Florence, I cannot expect joy. I am destined to be alone." I said, "Then you are decreeing your own defeat. Stop walking in sorrow and begin walking in love. Say, I walk in victory in relationships. Love surrounds me. The right one appears by divine law, under grace, in perfect ways." She obeyed. Though her outer world still seemed empty, she walked as though she were already cherished. She blessed her days. She carried herself with joy. She spoke victory at every turn. And soon love appeared, rich and harmonious. Her walk had summoned it. So I ask you, how are you walking today? Do you walk as a beggar, eyes cast down, waiting for crumbs? Do you shuffle in defeat, rehearsing your failures, bowing to appearances? Or do you walk as a millionaire now, carrying yourself in victory, speaking triumph, declaring abundance with every step? Remember, the world does not lead, you lead. Appearances do not dictate, you dictate. Your walk creates your world. Here is your affirmation. I walk in victory now. Every plan prospers. Every door opens. Every enemy thought is dissolved. I cannot fail, for God never fails. My 110 million is mine now under grace and in perfect ways. I walk as a millionaire. I speak as a victor. I live as one already supplied. Speak it until your posture straightens, until your voice strengthens, until your very step carries the rhythm of triumph. For when you walk in victory consciousness, appearances must bow, circumstances must rearrange. The angel of money must obey. Victory is the crown, and it rests upon your head the moment you claim it. Transition. And once you learn to walk in victory daily, you will discover the final secret of permanent supply: gratitude. For gratitude seals the cycle, multiplies the balance, and keeps the vault overflowing without end. That is the last key we must now uncover. Here is the final seal upon every demonstration, the key that keeps the vault of heaven always open, the song that multiplies every deposit. Continuous gratitude. Gratitude is not a sometime practice. Gratitude is not a polite thank you muttered after the fact. Gratitude is power. Gratitude is multiplication. Gratitude is the law of increase in motion. Every blessing you thank for grows greater. Every gift you bless multiplies. Every small seed you rejoice over becomes a harvest. Complaint diminishes. Thanksgiving expands. Complaint closes the vault. Gratitude keeps it open. That is the law. Most people live in complaint and wonder why their supply shrinks. They look at their purse and sigh. This is too little. They pay a bill and groan. This drains me. They sit at their table and mutter. This is not enough. And the subconscious records every sigh, every groan, every mutter as a decree, and the outer world shrinks to match it. They do not see that their own complaint has cursed their supply, that their own ingratitude has written checks of lack, that their own words have emptied the vault. But the wise soul does the opposite. The wise soul blesses every dollar, rejoices over every opportunity, thanks God for every gift, no matter how small, knowing that gratitude is the seed of multiplication. I recall a woman who came to me with only $1 left. She said, "Florence, what can I do with this?" I said, "Bless it. Call it the magic purse of spirit that can never be depleted. Thank God for it. Declare that as it goes out, it returns multiplied." She obeyed. She ceased her complaint and began her thanksgiving. Soon that one multiplied into hundreds, then thousands until she stood supplied. She said to me, "The moment I began to bless instead of curse, my purse became a river instead of a pit." Gratitude had multiplied her balance. Another student cursed every bill she paid. She saw them only as burdens, as drains, as proofs of lack. I said to her, "Every bill you pay is evidence that supply has already been given. Each one proves that God has already met your need. Bless the bill. Thank God that it is paid. Say, 'I rejoice in my abundance. This bill is paid in full, and more supply rushes to me even now.'" She obeyed. Her finances shifted. Money flowed in unexpected channels. Debts dissolved. Her vault overflowed. The change was not in her income but in her gratitude. So I ask you now, what is the song of your lips? Do you mutter complaint, shrinking your supply with every word? Or do you sing gratitude, multiplying your fortune with every note? Remember, the angel of money listens not only to your commands but to your atmosphere. If you complain, the angel withdraws. If you thank, the angel multiplies. Gratitude is the music of heaven, and when you sing it, the universe cannot help but dance in response. Here is your affirmation. I live in continuous gratitude. I bless my money and it multiplies. I bless my bills and they return to me paid in full. I bless my opportunities and they increase. I give thanks that my 110 million is already mine under grace and in perfect ways. My life is filled with thanksgiving and my vault is overflowing. Speak it until gratitude becomes the rhythm of your heart. Speak it until complaint is impossible. Speak it until every thought, every word, every act is drenched in thanksgiving. For gratitude is the seal, the multiplier, the keeper of the vault. And when you live in continuous gratitude, your fortune flows without end. Transition. And now you have walked the full circle. You have seen the bank of truth. Learned why most never withdraw. Written your checks with faith. Secured them with poise and authority. Prepared your vault with expectancy, refused to prepare for failure, blessed others in circulation, walked in victory, and sealed it all with gratitude. The law is complete. But before we close, let us bring it all together in one final declaration. One last affirmation that seals your 110 million as present fact in your life today. You came to this message with a question burning in your heart. Can the universe send 110 million into my bank account today? And now, having walked with me through law upon law, story upon story, decree upon decree, you know the answer is not perhaps, not someday, not if I am worthy enough, but yes, by divine law, yes. The fortune is already credited. The account in spirit is already overflowing. The balance is already in your name. The only action required of you is to speak the word, to write the check with your tongue, to sign it with faith, to seal it with gratitude, and to walk in the calm certainty that it is already yours. The bank of heaven has no delays. Spirit does not withhold. Angels do not hesitate. The moment the decree is spoken, the transfer is made. And the only question is, will you believe it? Will you stand in it? Will you live as though it is already true? You have seen that most never withdraw because they beg, they fear, They doubt, and in so doing they cancel their own checks. You have learned that every word is a check, and the tongue is the pen of the ready writer. You have learned that fear and faith are the two signatures, and whichever you use will be honored. You have learned to cast the burden, to clear the overdrafts, to stop clutching your debts, to hand them over to the Christ within, and to walk free. You have learned that gratitude is the deposit slip, that poise is the security seal, and that authority is the final signature that guarantees every decree. You have learned to live in expectancy, never to prepare for failure, to bless and circulate, to walk as a millionaire now, and to sing in continuous gratitude, so that the vault of your life never runs dry. This is the full circle of law, the game of life played as it was meant to be played, and the prize is certain for the one who dares to believe. So I say to you now, stop staring at appearances. Stop bowing to the empty ledger of fear. Stop waiting for proof before you believe. The fortune is already yours. The 110 million is already credited. The angel of money is standing at your door, waiting for your command. Speak now and let it rush in. Here is the final affirmation we declare together. I now write the check of faith. I give thanks that 110 million flows into my bank account today under grace and in perfect ways. I cast every burden upon the Christ within me and I go free. I live in expectancy. I refuse failure. I bless and I give, and my good returns multiplied. I walk in victory. I live in continuous gratitude. My vault is overflowing. My fortune is secure. My word is law, and it is established. Now speak it aloud with me. Speak it until the truth reverberates through every cell of your being. Speak it until you feel the weight of millions in your hand. Until your atmosphere is saturated with supply. Until appearances bow and the demonstration manifests. And now, as you walk away from this message, know that your life will never be the same. You have not only heard the law, you have practiced it. You have not only studied the truth, you have spoken it. You have not only dreamed of millions, you have claimed them. And the universe, faithful and unfailing, is already at work delivering the harvest. But let me leave you with this. If this truth has lifted you, if this revelation has opened your eyes, then the next step is waiting the secret door to success. For there are doors in your life still shut, doors barred by hidden resentments, by subconscious fears, by delays unseen. And in the next message, I will show you how to dissolve those walls. How to walk through the secret door that opens into permanent triumph, where success follows you like a shadow, where every step is guided, and where the game of life turns in your favor without fail. Do not miss it. Click now and step through the door prepared for you tonight. Do not beg, do not doubt, do not delay. Speak the word, call the fortune, write the check, sign it with faith, seal it with gratitude, rest in peace and rise in triumph, for the universe has already spoken.